It's almost certain that that Donaldson was in Royal Park Terrace, which is a short walk. You walk along Royal Park Terrace and up the bottom of the canyon. He almost certainly walked to work every morning from there. He's got muddled with another Donaldson here, and you can see them all here. Here's David, the spirit dealer in 1 Canongate, and his house. And there's another D. Donaldson who's crept in, and he's mucked things up no end. It's not a simple take which we've got here. Even more concerning here, and this presents, I think, problems which this project and others will have to think through, is this entry here next to them. Flockhart, Duncan and Company, manufacturing chemists, etc., etc. South back of Canongate, which is there. Flockhart's are one of the most important entries which we've got here. Here it is. Here's the full PDF which you've got. To cut a long story short, these people are part of the pharmaceutical industry of the lower Canongate. They made chloroform for Simpson, was one of their major and most important products. Unfortunately, they might be able to handle the demands of the pharmaceutical industry, but they make a complete mess of addressing history. They don't know where to go here. Why? Because when you set up the structures there's quite a reasonable structure which says each entry has a forename, a surname, an occupation, and an address. Now, as you begin to look more at a directory, you'll find many entries don't have a forename, they're simply a company. Many people who have forenames and surnames don't just have a work address, but they have a home address. They need 2 address fields which are there. And again, you can see Duncan Flockhart. Do you want his telephone number? I don't know. It'd be interesting, wouldn't it? You might do, because you might want to get a listing of everybody who had a telephone at that particular period. It's just beginning to be part of business. He's got several entries here. Flockhart's, in fact, had a big piece of land in North Edinburgh in which they grew the plants, many of the plant products that were the basis of pharmaceutical products, foxgloves, digitalis, all that type of thing. I'm being a bit mean here because I've probably got the most complicated entry in the whole of the 1905 directory. Nonetheless, the challenge that I'm kicking out to the project, and it's important if crowdsourcing is going to be helpful to you, because a crowdsourcer can deal with New Street spelt NCW. Absolutely no problem, particularly with the PDFs which is there. But unless you give them structures into which they can put complex entries, such as companies, such as institutions, such as multiple entries, such as the separation of home and work, the crowdsourcer is going to scratch ahead and find enormous difficulties in coping with the challenges which this brings for them. So there's several points coming from this, my initial inquiry about the Canongate, which is there. One is the high error rate of OCR. I reckon about 40% of the entries are compromised, and 20% of them are compromised in ways that alter the structure, and that's the worry. The compromised ones you can deal with in your agenda, but where the occupation, where the data structure is compromised, is problematic. The Google location system is quite good, although it always takes the last address element. So again, you've got to be sure what it is. Sometimes it gets in a right tangle. There were 2 residents of St. John's Street. Many of you will know St. John's Street as being just off the top of the Canongate. It was the first new town of Edinburgh before the one that we all call the new town. Actually, those 2 residents are dumped out in Corstorphine because of the St. John's Road there. There are now no residents in St. John's Street, so Google hasn't a clue what to do with that. But Google's always helpful. Google never gives up. It will always put it somewhere in that way, which is a bit of a danger. which is here. There's the issues of placing correct information in the appropriate field. I think in 1785, 24 of the occupations, as I said, were addresses. And there are clearly issues. You might be able to set up a directory or a lookup table that does that. But again, the directory will create problems for you because many entries genuinely don't have occupations. And typically, entries referring to women don't have occupations. And there's all sorts of issues coming here. So the problem in many ways is not a systems problem. The problem is about the growing complexity of the directory itself. We're left not quite sure when we see some of the, the changes I've outlined, if it's an OCR error, a Google Map error, or even the changing nature of the directory itself. You'll see, I just, you know, one of the things that I'm keen on in these is to remind you of the physicality of the directory. That's a directory for 1774. It takes the very top professional elements of Edinburgh society. This is for 1840. I didn't pinch these from the library. Okay, actually, this was when you could still buy them for next to nothing in charity shops, before the people who run charity shops realised they're actually worth quite a lot. So that's 18, and this is the 1890s here. In the 1890s, there's a very full A to Z listing, a very full trades and professions listing, and a very full street-by-street listing, so that many people put their profession into the trades and professions, and they don't put their occupation into the A to Z list. So are we looking at the changing nature of Edinburgh, or are we looking at the changing nature of the directory here? It's a familiar historian's problem. I mean, but one of the difficulties is when you put something online, it obtains an enormous authority, and people become much less critical. Source criticism is a very hard thing to do. We need some sense of context, and I think one of the things that I hope will come forward is perhaps some introductory essays on that sense of context. I remember I think somebody's going to talk about the statistical account website later on, but one of the most powerful things there are the set of introductory essays that tells you this is how the source you're looking at was put together, this is why it was put together, this is what was in the heads of the people who did it. And that context is something that we need to look at here. But you know, at present, I mean, these are sea trials, as I say, and we don't want any passengers on board because they'll still find the plumbers sort of going around all the cabins which are here. If we put a bunch of web-savvy 15-year-olds into this, they will become disillusioned within a very short space of time because these are people who know exactly how things like this work. But I think, that being said, it's important that we... Oh, I love this guy, John Deacon, football maker. Stuart will love him too, because he fits your data structure absolutely perfect. You know, I mean, okay, I'm picking on the problems, highlighting them, so we can think about them. But let's not forget the enormous amount of useful, accurate work. If you want to know about the football maker, in you go here. But it's important to know how things are operating. Okay, let's go to another of my interests, because I want very quickly just to run through photographers. Become interested in photography as a business, not just the photographs themselves. You'll be pleased to know there were no photographers in 1784, which is good perhaps as well. So let's go to 1865. What we find here is a distribution of photographers. 29 results were found here. Here they are along the main shopping street, Princes Street. You know, let's all go into town and have our photographs taken. Here you can see them along Newington, the Newington Road area, as the middle classes of Edinburgh were spreading out, heading towards Grange and Morningside. And as they spread out that way, the photographers who wanted their business also chased after them here. 29 of them I've got. Remember that number, actually, because when we go to 1905, there's only 20. What on earth is going on here? I know of no economic, technological or social reason why there should be fewer photographers in Edinburgh between those two dates. I think that's the Directory. I think if you looked up trades and professions section, you would get that. So anybody trying to write a history of the economic history of photography in Edinburgh straight off this would be in deep trouble here. Some of this, and Newington has disappeared here, except for this guy, forget who he was. Oh, let's go to Thomas Percy, where's somewhere out west. He's actually been located in his home address. So this is part of the business and home issue. If you're doing the economic history of photography, do you want that? Do you want his home address or not? Well, let's go a step back, because I have in my back pocket here another one that I did earlier, to quote that famous phrase, where I took listings of photographers from trades and professions. 1890, there were 53 of them. 1857, there were 24 of them. And it shows that, you know, we got a long way there. There's the Princes Street lot. Green is the earlier group, and you can see the photographers following their customers. But as their customers swung west here, towards the West End, and down the Morningside Road, and down Leith Walk, the photographers left Newington, and they followed them on there. So that's very much the artisan level. I have to admit, I put those in line by line, digit by digit. It's an indication of the gains if the OCR and crowdsourcing works, and if some of the problems, the changing structure of the directory are going to work, then you can see the sorts of gains that would be made here. So this is, I think, absolutely fascinating project, which has made enormous gains. I refer you back to my punch cards, which are sitting there. At the same time, there's an enormous number of issues, opportunities there, for at any level of history, whether it's somebody like me looking at economic and social structures. If you're a family historian and you punch in Morris and you get Morris, then you're in there. If you punch in Morris and you don't get Morris, well, is he there or is he not there? Or is it the structuring or the OCR that means that your ancestor wasn't in Edinburgh? It's a very, the risk elements are things to deal with. So, we need context, we need ways of dealing with complexity, we need ways of thinking about data structure. There's also an issue I've not mentioned, but you might think about, which is that you're getting a huge amount of information here. And we need to think about ways of presenting and analysing masses and masses and masses of data which are here. You need to begin to think like the unfortunate intelligence officer who is no longer able to prop up the bar and listen in to conversations, but has got this huge amount of electronic noise, more than anybody could read in a lifetime, and devises ways of presenting it and analysing it in all sorts of ways. But that is quite enough. I think this is a ship, to go back to my metaphor of the launch at the beginning, I think this is a ship with a great future, but it's not yet ready for sea. But I hope it will be. Thanks very much.